Good evening, classmates. I just want to share my thoughts on week two's assignment on hope theory and leadership and the role that it plays uh, in our lives and as we lead those who are under our charge. I found the resources this week very interesting, particularly the uh, reading which talked about being goal oriented. And as I thought about my life and realized that ever since a young age, I was taught to set goals, both long-term and short-term goals. Didn't have the science behind it at that time, but um, my mother was one who believed in planning, and as her child, I too was taught the value of planning and writing out the goals that you hope to achieve. And it's interesting that the literature would suggest that you should plan your short-term and long-term goals. As a leader of women in my church, we had a vision boarding where we planned out our short-term vision for 2017, put it down on paper and in pictures that we would reach those goals. So my definition is not as technical as Snyder 1994, but which suggests that goals are targets of mental action and sequences which provide the cognitive component which anchors hope theory, which was very interesting. I didn't realize that hope was an actual theory until I actually began to go through these resources. The foundations or underpinning of hope theory began back in the 50s, which I found interesting. And what I saw in this is that hope is the glue which holds things together, be it in the classroom, be it in the office or a family, whatever the dynamic. Hope is central to making the ship stay upright. It is the perception or belief that one can reach their desired goals. And it suggests that it involves two crucial components: pathways and motivation. As leaders, it's necessary to the hope is necessary for us to put our best efforts forward. In my indoctrination, I was taught that hope sprang eternal by Alexander Pope, meaning that you must always have hope. You can't be pessimistic about life, else you will not get what you are seeking out of life. In order to reach our goals, people must see themselves as actually being capable of generating those routes needed to get to those goals, or the pathways. And thinking generates at least one or two ways in which you can get to your goal, and also plans for or accounts for any obstacles, and develops a contingency plan to help them get to where they're going. Agency is also essential in the hope theory, and we must be sure to focus on our perceived capacity to use the pathways that we develop to get from point A to point B. Hopeful thinking involves envisioning working solutions that take us to our destination. Hope is seen as an emotion. Positive emotions, from positive emotions should flow perceptions of successful goal pursuit. And you can even trace that back to its biblical underpinnings, where we're told that as a man thinks, so is he. So if you think that you're going to be able to achieve it and you put the steps in place to do it, then you should succeed. And as a good friend once told me, that the optimist and the pessimist are both right. It's all a matter of perception. If you see the glass as half full, you're correct. If you see the glass as half empty, you're also correct. So when having hope, you see the glass as being half full. Optimism is crucial, according to Seligman in the hope theory, that we must incorporate the self-efficacy, which is our cognitive processing, that we do focus on specific goals, our self-esteem, which we have a correct personal judgment of our worth, and that we're able to identify the problem to solve it, that it might not stand in our way. And in applying the hope theory, as far as students are concerned, we perceive that our children will see themselves as successful and be able to generate ideas and solutions that will get them to their academic goals. I was really impressed with the Dr. Lopez video as he shared about hope, and I began to jot down some notes, and I saw myself as a leader and as a servant leader, and one of the most profound things that he said was that the four attributes that that a leader should have would be stability, trust, compassion, and hope. And people look to us, people that we lead look to us to fulfill these needs. And if they do not see these needs or sense that we have these needs and their interests at heart, then we're not going to get the performance out of them that we would necessarily get. Also, we have to understand that having hope is not only synergistic, which helps the inner working of the entire effort, but that is also contagious. And his statement was very thought-provoking in that your hope influences others, and I found that really optimistic in terms of a leader from a leadership perspective, and even from a ministry perspective and a classroom perspective. He also mentioned that in hoping, we create memories for the future. So as a leader, our job is to help people envision their futures, their goals and their dreams, help them get from point A to point B. Also, that hope would suggest that we invest in our people. So as a leader, we would invest time and energy into developing their talents and their gifts. And I know that I had a manager who was very instrumental, and I guess she subscribed to the hope theory, but she did invest in her people, and she was different than all the other managers, and in turn, people would work harder for her because of the relationship that she had forged with us, the workers, because she was the kind of person who exuded a sense of hope and gave others around her hope. She gave them hope that they would succeed and hope that they would be able to fulfill their goals. Also, I found it interesting when he mentioned about his son and his son's occupational goals wanting to change from time to time, and about being a coder, because the only time I'd ever heard that was from my own grandson, who calls himself the pro gamer, which is slash for programmer, and that he even thinks about his future now. He's 10 and he's already planning to go to MIT someday. So again, just having conversations with our family and our friends and those who are in our circle of influence, we build hope in their lives. And it's not about finances necessarily, but it's about hope as an equal opportunity resource. That just blew me away. We'll be sharing that with folks for days to come, because that just never thought of it in that light before or through that context, but indeed it is. And it helps people become more creative, and it also helps them to problem solve as well. So this week's resources and talking about motivation, intrinsic versus extrinsic, actually in cooperation with this, challenge some of the assumptions that I had held about motivations and reinforcements. Because as teachers, sometimes we're taught to give a concrete reinforcement to get the desired behavior, but just through the readings and watching the videos and the other Dr. Pink video as well, we're showing that motivation, what we see as extrinsic or even intrinsic motivation, may not necessarily be so. So I was challenged and stretched to re-examine the paradigms that I'd held concerning motivation. So this has been a very good object lesson for me to do some introspection and really look at my assumptions and beliefs and along the categories of motivation as well as hope. Thank you for viewing my video. I look forward to talking to you again soon. So long.